I think another important part of that is that he has very strong math skills, and somewhere along the way that wasn't capitalized on. And the idea of him having options, and that there are enough options that one of them will fit. So if you can find a math and science school where that can really engage his mathematical mind, then it transforms the student's approach to their own education. And it gets back to what Senator Kelly was saying, that if you're able to engage in one way, it will transform your approach to all of the rest of your education. So maybe you would have been more excited about working hard at reading had he been able to engage in a certain way in math or in science. So I think part of that is what Dr. Brennan was saying, is providing options, but making sure that there are enough options, which is particularly hard in a rural state, that you're able to hit 100% of the students who need all of those options.
So, question over there. I've been neglecting that side of the room. If you could, by the way, give your name and your town, that would be great.
Sure, my name is Laura Piccolo. I live in Goffstown. I'm a teacher in Nashua. And I'm so glad you said something, because 3 years ago I was asked to teach reading intervention at the middle school. I teach 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, so 11 to 14 years old. Spoke about in the video, they keep going down, 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 and so does the funding at the middle school. Down, down, down. I was asked to teach this position. By the way, we don't have any books. Okay? So, go to my husband, we need to spend money. We need some books. I can go to the library, but those are really 9th and 10th grade books from when we were in junior high. What is happening with these funds? I listened in the film, and it was beautifully said. She went in there and reallocated funds and said, this is where we really needed them. And I think it's devastating that he was left behind. And that's why this position was created. So there are things in motion that doesn't help you at this moment, but in the future. These kids, data proven, are raising 2 to 4 grade levels every year. But that's me. That's not fair. That's not fair to your son. That means those options weren't given to you. That's not your fault. So what are we going to do about this? Because math and science are important, and if they can't read the directions, they can't do that. And that's what I'm getting from mainstream teachers. What are we going to do with these funds? Please don't forget the middle school.
I take it you all heard the question. If you don't, do you want to brainstorm? What should be done?
Well, I think that this is the time of year that people start to really talk about the funding issues, and there's a lot on everybody's plate. I think it's I want to go back to the point that, from my perspective, what goes on in our schools, in those districts, management of funds, and how funds, whether it's federal or state funds, they have to be managed. We started out by talking about effective teaching and effective leaders. Effective leaders manage money well. Effective leaders know what's going on in their schools. They know what's going on in their classrooms. In effective schools, kids don't get to 12th grade without any sense of aspiration, sense of skills, knowledge base. It just doesn't happen. So I think the challenge for all of us in our society, whether it's in the Bronx or whether it's in Los Angeles or whether it's in New Hampshire, is to take responsibility for who's running our schools, what teachers we have in our schools, what the preparation programs are doing to prepare people to go into our schools. And the management of funds, there are federal funds, there are state funds. And I want to go back to that management is really in the hands of the individuals and the school boards and the local control issues. So it's very, very important to keep that in mind. Right now, if one were to think that any individual in this state could go into a school district and tell a district how to spend their money, you're wrong. It's the taxpayer in the community that makes the determination. And any mother, father, grandparent that sees their kindergarten or first, second, or all the way up the grades, that doesn't see their child reading or performing at a level, has a responsibility to communicate that information to their school. And if they don't get satisfaction, then they have to go further. And so I hear you as a teacher, and you sound like a really effective teacher. So that impact can be very diffusive in a school as long as we have more effective teachers and leaders. And I just want to point out the movie didn't really illustrate, that if a student has a poor teacher for 3 years, they have lost 5 years of their education. Let me repeat that. If a student experiences 3 years of ineffective teaching, they have lost 5 years of their education.
A friend of mine who was really the person who started charter schools in New Hampshire made an observation to me not too long ago that the next wave of reform isn't going to be just starting individual charter schools, but reorganizing whole school districts so that they're broken into smaller units, so that parents have more control over the schools, so that there is more choice and all kinds of different schools within a district, not one size fits all. And I'm going to just read, she went on to reorganize the Greenfield, Massachusetts school district, which was a failing district that was about to be taken over by the state of New Hampshire. It was $1 million in debt, and it was pretty much a disaster area. So now they have a virtual learning school. They have an 8th grade academy, which is for kids that are struggling. They have a Poet Seat therapeutic day program, which is for children with emotional problems. They have an academy of early learning. They have a math and science, and they have a math and science academy, as well as I'm not sure how many, but 5 or 6 conventional public schools. And I believe that she's managed to do all this in a period of 2 years, to break the system down, to create, some of these schools are charter schools, one of them is an innovation school, and some of them are just little schools within a school. And all of that can be done in any district in New Hampshire. Any school in New Hampshire can turn itself into a charter school. Any school in New Hampshire can have a charter school and a regular school all in the same building. So that there are just, and I believe that by doing some of these things that you're actually going to be saving money, because the charter schools function with much less money than from the state than do the traditional schools. Something like that has also happened in New Orleans. When the school system blew away, they created a new one. And within the New Orleans school system, there are 10 charter schools as part of a district reorganizing of schools, so that there's a huge amount of choice. And there would be then a much better chance for a child like yours to find a real place for himself.
Okay, some questions on the front?
Can I ask a question about charter schools? And just from the film, we're very encouraged to see what's possible, but I also heard 20% of charter schools succeed, and does that mean 80% do not succeed or do not meet the standard? That's my first question. My second question was, you've got parents that advocate well for their children, but if you have a system like you're describing to me, it seems to me that children with the best advocates will end up being tracked into these schools, and the children without the advocates or without parents who are able to advocate as effectively, maybe aren't proficient in English yet, will not be able to advocate as well. So those are my 2 questions with
All right.
the system.
Yeah, let me repeat that for the people in the back, and that is 2 points being made. In the film, it was noted